Hey guys, Nick from Nick's Garage Door Service here. Welcome to the new shop. I figured better late than never. I know I've been absent for quite a while from YouTube, and there's a good reason for that. I have not really had the time nor the motivation to edit together the videos that I've had from the trips out to RGD Man's and LiftMaster Joe's place. So most of the videos that you've seen from other creators I have copies of too. I just have not had the chance or the motivation to get things together because every weekend it feels like there's something to do. So I apologize for that. I've been gone for a long time and I do definitely want to get back to this. I'm going to try harder to go ahead and do that because I've been prioritizing what I need to do out of necessity, obviously, but I haven't been making the effort to make time for what I want to do. So I want to get these videos out for you guys, and that comes with this new video series today. I got some inspiration to get back behind the camera from Mike at All Pro Quality Garage Doors in sunny San Diego. For those of you who are unaware, unfortunately Mike passed away earlier this year, and that was a blow because I really liked watching his videos. He had a great way to put together a how-to video from his, one-piece hardware videos from Holmes Holly to the videos that he made talking about making garage doors, from scratch. He did the one-piece wood door, the custom build to match the other door on the duplex. There was another one he showed how to build the steel one-piece door and hang it. There were other videos talking about balancing the door from scratch, when you put up a new set. The one-piece operator installation video that he did, just countless videos. Heck, he introduced me to the band Atreyu because of the video he did removing a one-piece door. He put one of their songs to the background track, and I kind of got hooked on the band, so that was kind of cool. But even the operator teardown videos, I used to come home from school when I was younger, and I would watch those like crazy. Just, the knowledge that he had for these machines, especially being in the field. I mean, this was not a hobby for him. It was his career. And he was very knowledgeable for everything that was out there, having serviced it. So I'm a firm believer in, if nobody preserves history, it gets lost. It's just the honest to God truth. That's why I have such a hard time throwing away some of these operators. And when I have, multiples of, I just have a hard time getting rid of them because I know there's not that many out there if people don't save them. So yeah, losing Mike was a pretty hard blow to the community. We had kind of become friends along with some of the original members of the YouTube garage door community, and he kind of stopped posting to social media, and hindsight's always 20/20. I should have gone back and sent him a message and just seen how he was doing, but he led a very private life. So I do regret not reaching out, and I will miss him going forward. I had the realization that I had a great opportunity to make something similar with this video series that we're going to do. So we're going to go ahead and move forward, and I'll show you what's going on here. But first, Mike, this one's for you. Cheers. So, about those videos, the other reason that I had not been uploading them was because trying to edit them and trying to figure out why the audio was only coming out one speaker. I think I figured it out. I have a tendency, because I'm right-handed, to hold the camera off to the side like this, and my cam recorder records in stereo. I was trying to figure out how to switch it to mono, but the issue was because I was on the left side of the camera, the audio was only coming out of the left side speaker because I was speaking off to the side. Instead of holding the camera like this, the lens or the screen would have been off to the side here. I was holding it more like this so I could see what I was recording, and that was the problem. So I can't figure out how to splice that together with the video editor that I've been using so that it'll play through both channels. Some of the videos that I've already put up, I've noticed that it only plays through one speaker, and I find that to be pretty annoying. So I want to get a good quality video out to you guys so you can enjoy it and you can hear it kind of like you're there. So I want it to be as close as possible to being in the same room with the machine as I can get you. And I couldn't do that. So what I ended up doing is I found some external microphones. This is wired to a transmitter, and then there's a receiver hooked to the camera right now. And I took a test video. I think I'm pretty happy with how this is going to turn out, but hopefully the results show up through the final product as well. Moving forward today, my family members purchased a property that had a pole barn on it. Now these have 16 by 14 uninsulated Rainer doors. There's 3 of them. They're the ribbed panel commercial type doors. And being 14 foot tall, it's hard to get them open by hand. You fling them up, you take a pole, a piece of conduit from, they just sit next to the garage door, and you shove them up the rest of the way. So the previous owner of the property had 2 commercial operators and 1 head that he was using for parts. There's 3 doors. 2 of them are going to be used a lot more often than the 3rd one. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these commercial operators work, and then we're going to build our own version of like an ATS machine to put up there. I have enough stuff laying around that I decided to try to do this for as cheap as possible. So let's get over here. I'll flip the camera around and I'll show you what we're dealing with, and we'll move on with the video. Okay, so I have 2 LiftMaster MT5011 relay-based operators. These are actually BMT5011 units with the brake, so that's awesome. These are for a 12-foot door, unfortunately, so what I have to do is extend the rail and the chain to make it able to lift a 14-foot door. So a little bit of fabrication is going to get done today. I will do a tour of the new shop at some point. I'm not going to get to that right now, though there are some things in here that I kind of want to keep off camera. So the only thing I've done to these machines, here's the other one, by the way. I just kind of got it propped up. This door is inoperable. It's an interior door, and I can't open it up without setting off the alarm on the other side. So anyway, these MT5011s are from about 1998, so they're pretty old. I have not touched these things. I touched this one just to kind of take it apart and see how it was, what condition it was in and how things were wired. That's how I figured out they were relay-based units, but that one I did put power to, and I know it does work. So that's the only one that I've played with. The only thing that I've done to these 2 was remove the installation. No, I removed the company stickers from the company that originally installed them when they were new. Other than that, they're pretty much untouched. So I guess plan of attack here, I want to see if these things even work before I start welding the rails on. So I guess let's flip this over. We'll get a power cord hooked up to it, and we'll bypass the stop circuit because I don't have any 3-button stations here, and see if this thing comes to life. All right, let's flip this guy over and see what we're dealing with here. Let's see here. I can barely read this decal. December 8th of, that's either 98 or 99. I can't tell. So, 26, 27 years old. Luckily enough, these are all 110 volt operators, so I don't have to deal with high voltage. Just run these off a regular old power cord. I can't find my drill, so that's a little annoying. All right, let's see what's in here. Maybe it's a mouse nest. No, no mouse nest, that's good. 115 volt single phase. Okay. Somebody circled that. All right. We got our control wiring here. We got our mains in all the way to the right. And I have to glue that back on or something. Put that off to the side. All right, I'm gonna need a flathead and a Phillips. Bear with me here. So these videos, I'm thinking, are going to be kind of unedited or minimal editing because, well, I've had people tell me that I should start a YouTube channel for working on cars, but the thing is, I absolutely cannot stand working on cars and stopping what I'm doing to talk to a camera and explain it. So that was why I never really did. As much as I'd love to, I just don't have the patience for it. So unless I screw something up, this is gonna kind of be a little bit more raw footage. I gotta cut that. Where did my good wire strippers go? There they are. Okay. So we're gonna get rid of this guy as well. Cut this back a little ways. Let's see if I can, and now I can slip this off here. Give me a little bit more room there. And I'm gonna get rid of open and close right now. And this is probably a reversing circuit for a safety edge or photo eyes. All I really want to do right now is just jumper stop to common, and I'm going to run it with the radio terminals on the side. So strip that, put him here. All right, so that should be ready to run. I got a power cord over there set up so I can just plug in an extension cord. I'm gonna set that off to the side too so I don't lose it, but these have been sitting in a barn for a while. There was something up in here I forgot to grab. Oh, here it is. Some sort of a cap for a piece of pipe, it looks like. Okay. So, temporary power in. Okay. Always be safe, always connect the ground, always grab the wrong screwdriver. Everything else is Phillips in here, so why would you be a flathead? Of course. All right, now I think L1's typically the black wire for the hot. Yes. Probably should put some connectors on this, but this is just temporary for testing purposes. I'll probably end up buying some actual appliance line cord or something. I don't think I'm gonna hardwire these. It'll just be easier to put an outlet in, I think, and run a cord to it. That should be good enough for testing. I'm gonna flip this back over and we'll plug it in and touch some terminals together and see what happens. All right. Well, it didn't explode, that's good. Okay. Let's see if it runs or if we're gonna let the magic smoke out. Fantastic. Up limit works. No weird noises. It's actually pretty quiet. Let's go back down. All right. I like the brake on this one. I forgot I got the wireless mic on this thing, so I'm going to stay next to it here so you can actually hear it up close. This will definitely do the job. So now that we know it works, I'm going to go ahead and unplug the thing. We'll leave the power cord on it for right now, but I think I'm going to modify these operators one at a time. We'll test that one out later. Like I said, worst case scenario, I have the other head that works, so I can always put that head on the other rail if that one's bad. But yeah, I think it's time to start stripping this down a little bit and making it longer. I'm gonna get these tabs off here because I think there was some sort of a radio receiver or some sort of a 2-wire open close. So, all right, I'm gonna reposition the horses a little bit here and I'll be back with you shortly. All right, so before I start taking everything apart here, one of my pet peeves is dealing with a loose chain, you know, especially on a bigger operator like this where it's kind of heavy and awkward. So I'm gonna take 2 zip ties here. And before I start working on the header end of this rail, I'm gonna put a zip tie through both the upper and lower part of the chain. And I'm gonna route that around this support here. I'm gonna throw one more zip tie just through the upper and the lower chains. Snug this up. Now that is gonna support the weight of the chain when we take it off at the front right here. So, that being said, moving along to the front. So, I'm gonna go ahead and pop off the adjustment end. These are all 3/8 bolts and nuts. I'm gonna take the tension off the chain now. We're gonna be extending this end because I'm gonna put a center hang on these operators anyway. So that'll help support that welded joint. So I'm just gonna let that do its own thing. And then I gotta pull this master link up here. Get you guys up here. Now that's off, I gotta get that master link undone. And this is the part where it probably flies across the room, unless I can pry it off. So one way that I've done this before with some residential operators is just like that. You pry one ear out and push down, and it kind of rotates, and you can just push this up. You gotta be careful with these things though, because they are pretty brittle and they will break. So, get this guy off here. I'm gonna put this master link back together so I don't lose the pieces because, well, I probably will lose the pieces if I don't. Notice I'm doing this before I even flip the chain around because, like I said, these things fly across the room and then you never see them again, and I don't have any extras that are for the larger chain. Okay, so that is now free. Now we're gonna be working on this end. I'm going to zip the header bracket off and zip that idler off. Probably put some oil in that while I have it apart, because who knows when the last time it was that bearing's ever seen any appreciation for its hard work. It's hard work pulling a door and supporting a heavy chain all day. You know, I've been saying this forever. That's why we never really see sprocket failures or bearing failures on the belt drive operators, because the belt is so much lighter than the chain. Yeah, you can still be lifting a heavy door and wear it out. Absolutely. But for the most part, that's why all the sprocket problems are on the chain drives, because the chains are so heavy. You got to pull that thing tight too. So there we go. That's that needs some help. All right. I'm sure living in a barn for the past few years didn't help either. All the dust in there. So I'm gonna zip these off here. I wish I could find my impact gun here, but I think somebody borrowed it and forgot to put it back. Let's save that for later. All right, so now that I got that off, you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. These rails are literally just 2 pieces of angle iron with some holes drilled in them. So I measured this rail. It's 1 inch short of 15 foot for a 12-foot door. So I grabbed a rail for an 8-foot LiftMaster commercial operator from my local supplier the last time I was there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut 2.5 feet out of this rail and use the rest of it probably to hang the openers, because it is still angle iron. I mean, at this point then it's going to be too short to use it for a door unless I have like a, I don't know, 6-foot, maybe Brazilian hot dog can use it for his mini door in the basement. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and just weld on 2.5 feet to the end of this rail. I'm going to clean up the welds here where the trolley's got to pass over it, and then I might also on the front here get a piece of scrap metal and just weld over the actual seam to try to get some more strength into it, because I have to butt weld on the bottom here where the trolley's going to have to go over it, but I can add more to the side of the rail to help reinforce it. And then once these are installed, I am going to add a center hang, and I want to do it as close as possible to this joint here to help sturdy it. So let me get these pieces cut out of this rail and we'll go from there. All right, so just laying this out real quick here with my tape measure. I'm just going to mark 2 foot 6 inches on both of these, right on the edge of the angle. And I was hoping I was going to be able to cut the ones for the next rail or for the next operator while I was here. I'm just going to chop it, but unfortunately it's going to be too close to this next set of holes right here, so I'm going to have to cut those from the other end. But what I'm going to do to make sure I get straight cuts on all of these angles is I'm going to use a square here and just use a good edge that I know is nice and straight and transfer that line to both ends. Same thing on this one. Okay, so now I'm going to cut these with the death wheel, and I'll show you a trick I have for that. Okay, so for technique here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the death wheel here to cut it off. I'm going to switch my handle to the other side, but what I'm going to do is instead of, turning it on and just sitting there and grinding, I'm going to just carefully drag across my mark there to make a line. I'm going to do that 1 or 2 times to try to cut a small groove in the metal, and then I'm going to go through it and try to actually cut a little bit deeper. But it's better than sitting there and just trying to grind and cut and hold it straight, because if you can score it, then the blade's going to kind of want to stay in that groove you've already made. And be easy with these things. Always check them for damage before you use them, because they can explode and nobody likes the hospital. I don't care who you are. Okay, now I'm basically just going to rotate this and do the same thing for these other cuts here. I'm going to repeat that for the other pieces. Okay. All right, so now hopefully you can kind of get an idea of what we're going for here. Squared these up pretty nicely. I just checked them with my square and kind of ground them a little bit so they're nice and flat. Now I got to figure out a way to make sure that these are straight when I weld them on. So what we're going to do is, first off, you cannot weld the garbage, you cannot weld the coatings. I'm going to take my little die grinder here with one of these. It's like basically a Scotch-Brite wheel. Just knock off the rust, the zinc coating, and whatever else is on here, and just expose some clean bare metal, and I'm going to end up doing the same thing over here. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is clamp either a 2x4 or whatever I got in the wood pile over there that looks fairly straight. Clamp that to the bottom of the rail on both sides to kind of use as a, you know, as a square or a straight edge kind of deal. So then we just got to line it up, clamp it up, and weld it up. So I'm going to get started on grinding this out of the way. Grinding this a little bit cleaner. Well, I had a marginally better idea. This is the old piece of rail that I cut that, well, I'm not going to use. I guess I'm going to use it for something. This is going to support and keep the section that I'm welding on as straight as humanly possible in line with the existing rail. So I got a couple of vice grips down on the other end there just to hold it in place. I'm going to do the same thing here. I got two up here, and then there's one at the back that's just supporting the weight. That guy right there. So that is just as far back as I could get it. It's supporting the weight and keeping it from drooping down at all in the front. So like I said, that's going to be as good as I can possibly get it to inline. And over here, it's not going to matter as much about putting one farther out. As long as everything stays in line here. So at this point, I'm going to crack out the welder and I'm going to weld the inside first. Then I'll probably switch sides and put the support on the other side of the rail here. We'll weld the other half on, and then we'll flip the whole thing over and I'll weld the outsides. Okay, so I have measured the thickness of the material. It's 1/8 inch thick. Now on my welder here, I have the auto set feature. So this one, basically, I just set it to 1/8 inch thick material using 30 thousandths wire. And I got to hook the ground clamp up and then we're good to weld it. So I'm going to MIG weld these. That's basically the welding equivalent to using a hot glue gun. It's probably the easiest form of welding. If you guys have never done this before and you want to get into it, that's probably the best way to start. Then again, I'm also not a welding instructor, but if you're looking at getting decent welds laid down rather quickly, probably the fastest one to learn. Now, the one thing I will also add, anytime you're welding, it's a great idea to unplug any sensitive electronics. So if there's a circuit board in the operator, unplug all the connectors. Might even be a good idea to pull the circuit board off if it's a residential operator or a commercial operator. So there is a board in this machine. I'm going to go unplug that now. It's for the RPM sensor for the safety reverse. So I'm going to go unplug that. All right, the welding gas is on. I think we're ready to go here. Now, when you're welding like this, you want to hear bacon. Nice, constant sizzling. But if you smell bacon, you're probably on fire. Contact. I'm happy with that. So I had some pretty good penetration on the welds. It laid down a little bit tall up here, but that's okay. We're gonna have to grind that section anyway to get the trolley to pass over it. So I'm gonna go ahead and swap this reinforcement angle iron to the other side over here. We'll weld up the inside on this side, and then we'll move ahead, flip it over, and weld the outside all the way around. Okay, next, there we go. All right, you know what? I can get this vertical section right here too. Might as well just knock this out, and then we'll flip it over and do the bottom. You know, I was thinking about putting a plate or something over this weld just to help reinforce it, but honestly, I think if I just center hang these, I'm not even gonna need them. So I'm gonna get this brace off, I'll weld that other side, and then we'll flip it over. Okay, so I just temporarily reinstalled the idler pulley to help keep everything in line and where it needs to be. Let's finish up this weld here. Well, it passed the bounce test, that's good. I think I'm gonna buy another one of those rail braces to put here too for the chain support. Now I know somebody's gonna ask both of these questions. Why don't you just buy 18 or 14 foot rails for these things? Because those are expensive. I looked into it, it would not have been cheap to do. The other thing is, why are you gonna weld this part of it if you think it's strong enough and you just gotta grind it anyway? Because I want every piece of strength I can joining these two metals together. So we're gonna weld it and we're gonna flatten it. Because don't forget, we got to flatten it on both sides. So that's going to weaken that weld a little bit too. So I want to fuse as much of this metal together as possible. Here we go. The other question I'm sure somebody's going to ask is, well, if it's a 12-foot door opener and he needs to make it open a 14-foot door, why did he add 2.5 feet instead of just 2 feet? Well, because I'm sure if I would have just added 2 feet, it would have been too short. Figured I'd give myself a little bit extra room here. Perfect. Now, needless to say, I'm going to go ahead and take a rag and probably spray something on there and wipe it out. Okay, so now I have to tackle the chain. Obviously, this is going to be too short now, but this is the smaller commercial chain, and I'm pretty sure, not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it's the same size as the residential chain. So, let's find out. This is off of a Chamberlain power drive that I threw the square rail away on. I decided to keep the chain for something, figuring a project would come up, and what do you know, I was right. So, pull this out of the bag here. Let's see if I can just get the chain end out, and no, I can't. Not without making a mess. Oh, maybe I can. Let's see. All right, it looks exactly the same, so perfect. I really don't want to use a master link in this, especially just to link the chain together. So I think what I'm gonna do is try to drive a pin out of the chain and then splice it together, drive the pin back in it. Not sure how that's gonna go, especially trying to do it up here on the machine, but I'll give that a try before I put a master link in it, because I prefer to have as minimal of those in there as possible. So I'm going to get this on the trolley, and we'll kind of measure it out and eyeball it and figure out where it needs to go. Pop this clip off this master link. Okay, I'm going to save those, put them just there for right now. All right, this goes on the master link on the trolley. This runs up and around the pulley for the idler. I didn't pull enough of this out of the bag. You know what? I might be able to do both openers with this one piece of chain. That'd be cute. Okay. So, pulling them snug. Get this cable part of it out of my way. It's actually not going to be that bad. All right, so if I cut the chain right over here in this area, probably have to drive this pin out right here. I think if I do that, I'll be able to put the pin back in it, and I should have enough room in that tensioner. Or do I want to try and stretch it a little bit farther? No, I think it's going to have to be this guy right here. Yeah, it's going to have to go back one more link. All right, so I'm going to get a marker, and I'll mark that. And that's the pin that we're going to drive out. All right, so I don't have the right tool to break this chain, but you know what I do have? The wrong tools. So I'm going to try and use a pin here and just try to tap that out real quick. If that doesn't work, I got to come up with a plan B, but I also have done this before by putting a socket on there and putting a punch on this side. However, I can't find my steel punches. I found this one loose in there, but I have a set. Oh, actually, you know what? Hold on a second. Oh, here they are. This one actually might work better. It's a smaller diameter. Let's try that. So I'm going to just try and tap this out of there. The problem is these are not flat punches, they're rounded ends, so this one might bounce around a little bit, but... Ooh, it's doing something. There we go. All right, that's it. Half of it's out. And that's the half that we need to put back onto the chain. Now, if this doesn't want to go back in, I can always just put a little tack weld on the pin to the link right there, because that's the part that doesn't rotate. The inside part is what rotates. So we'll put that back together somehow, and I think we'll keep on moving here. So now I can't help but wonder if somehow I could just use this like a press with a, you know, with a pair of pliers or something. So that's what I'm going to try and do there. I got that lined up. Pair of pliers. I can press. You know what? I think I need to get the pin loose. Okay. So I did bend one link, which I think is right now what's fighting me a little. So I'm gonna try to bend that link back. That looks pretty lined up on the other side. I might have to tap it back in. I grab my hammer and try to just tap that a little bit there. I take everything off this rail because as soon as I hit it with the hammer, it's going to bounce. I don't want to lose any of these master link parts. Okay. Still lined up pretty close there. It's almost there. I'm gonna grab a little socket and try to use that as a spacer. Oh, this is going to be a disaster hitting with my non-dominant hand. It's lined up, it just needs to go a little bit more. There we go, perfect. It's in line, it pivots. We just spliced a chain. All right, and given how difficult that was to pop back in, I don't think it's gonna pop back out on its own anytime soon. And if it does, like I said, it's not that difficult to fix. So I'm gonna run this around, hook it onto the trolley. All right. Now, got to pop the master link back together. Just gonna use this to push the clip back into place. There we go. We're in business. I'm gonna cut these zip ties and then we can see if there's enough adjustment to take the slack out of this chain. Or if I gotta pull it back apart and take another link out of it. All right, that's with the chain tightened all the way down. I think that's still too close. Yeah, I gotta take some out of there still. Okay, so at this point, instead of taking this all back apart, I'm just gonna take probably 2 links out of the master link on this side here by the adjuster. Okay, pulled 2 links. Let's see how it looks now. Oh, that's it. Beautiful. I'm actually gonna back that off just a little. I like a smidge of chain sag on my commercial operators. That's much better. Okay, I guess let's play with the limits a little bit and we can go ahead and run it. Okay, so since I didn't move the chain on the sprocket here at the motor, I know the up limit is basically going to be set perfectly. I'm just going to adjust the close limit here. So I'm going to depress the tab, run the limit nut in closer, set it right about there and see. This is that plug I was talking about earlier, by the way, for the RPM sensor. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug this back in. Okay, fingers out of the way, nothing else is in the way. I don't see why I can't run this upside down. Let's go ahead and give it a twirl. Up limit looks great. Let's go back down. I'm gonna get ready to unplug it just in case it overruns. Oh, I still got room. Okay, I'm gonna unplug it again just for safety's sake here, but I'm gonna adjust this down a bit farther. And let's see here. I think I can just bridge these two. Okay. For right now, I like that. Gonna bring it just a little bit farther. I like that. Run just about to the end there. I can back that off later if we need to. Yeah, I'll give you a run like this. Perfect. Okay, so this one's pretty much done. Off camera here, I'm gonna just take a shop rag with some WD-40, wipe down the rail and wipe down the chain because there's a lot of dust and debris on there, and WD-40 is kind of a cheap solvent. So I'm gonna use that, clean it up, and then I'm just gonna hit that area where I welded the rail with a little bit of paint to try to keep it from rusting. So I think this one's about set, guys. You'll see this one installed, and well, the other one's gonna be the same procedure, but I guess I'll film it too, so. All right, so before I put this one up and call it done, this is a 25-year-old machine minimum. Who knows when the last time was this thing actually saw any oil, so I got my can here. This is what I use on all my garage doors for everything, hinges, hardware, all of it. It's got 20 W50 boat engine oil in it. I like to use oil as opposed to a spray because I find the sprays dry up a lot quicker. You know, it's tried and true. There's a lot of arguments and discussions about, you know, what's best, but I've had really good luck with this. I'm gonna be honest with you, I haven't oiled the door on my house in probably 3 years, and it's still pretty quiet. I inspected all the hardware and nothing's showing signs of running dry or anything like that, so I'm a firm believer in that. The thicker the oil, the better though, because the thin stuff just runs. You want this stuff to stay where you put it. So. I think that made a pretty big difference right there. Put just a little bit of grease on the top of the rail when I put it up, and I think we're good. Okay, welcome back to day 2 of the Nick's Garage Doors Custom Operator Fabrication Extravaganza. This one's basically done. I just got to hit that section of rail with a little bit of primer, and we're all set. So I'm going to do that real quick. While that's drying, we're going to go ahead and get started on the second one. And that's basically just going to be a carbon copy of what we already did to this one here, rinse and repeat. So we're going to get the machine powered up, check out the operation, see how it does. If there's nothing else really crazy, that I'm going to speed through the actual fabrication process here because, well, you've already seen me do it once. It's going to be the exact same procedure. So let's get this up there. We'll get the other one down. This is probably going to suck, but here we go. Yep, try to find a balance point. Not quite. That's more gooder. Okay. Okay. I could use an assistant, but I can't afford one. All right, let's see. My microphone module is falling out of my pocket here. What do you guys think about the wireless mic? I listened to it and I tried to move the microphone. Hopefully that picks up a little bit less of my breathing. We'll see. I might also try to edit some of that out. I'm going to try and do so without scratching up the operator, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to avoid that entirely. Okay. I'm going to have to work around this a little bit. Not the biggest deal, but yeah, you can see just how much 2.5 feet there really adds to the length. More than you'd think. So, I'm going to back this one up. And we will get this machine out. There we go. This one's a little bit dustier, a little bit dirtier. I did take a rag and wipe down the other one. So I guess first steps, flip it over and let's get some power to it. All right, I repositioned my sawhorse down on the other end. Let's flip this guy over. Can you guys see okay? Yeah, perfect. All right. A little surprise on this one, they were removed from the same building and they're the same model number. However, this one was made in 01 and the other one was made in either 98 or 99. So they were probably not installed at the same time unless that 98 or 99 model operator was old stock. So let's get these things apart here. One thing that I also didn't mention is I am going to be installing photo eyes on these. I bought 2 of the LiftMaster CPI card modules that allow you to install either the CPS eyes, or I tested and those also will work with residential photo eyes, which I have a ton of. Ooh, goodies. We got a manual. That's neat. Got a warning label too. I have a feeling that was supposed to go on the door there, Mr. Installer. Anyway. Oh, that was from the installing company. They put their sticker. Do not operate this machine. Notify company after you have completed wiring. Do not operate door. My guess is they didn't set the limits because there was no power, and that's why they stuck that up there. Okay. So, gonna get rid of all of this old mains electrical here. Ooh. Oh, this one looks like it's wired a little differently. Oh no, they use this for the coil cord. It's a different gauge wire. All right, terminal strip is the same. Mains power comes in all the way on the right, and those are Phillips heads. Why won't you fit? There we go. Might help if I could aim the screwdriver. Okay. Finally found my spade terminals. So that'll make this go a little bit quicker. You know, that is kind of small wire for this terminal, so I'm gonna just cheat a little and fold it over. I know it's not the right way to do it, but it's low voltage, so who gives a crap. Alrighty, let's get you into terminal 3 and tighten down all these screws so none of them rattle out of place. All right, now, since I found the spade terminals, I added them onto my main power cord here too, just to get things moving a little bit quicker, make it easier to install. This one I do keep around just for testing, so it's just kind of a shop tool anyway. It's never going to be permanently installed on an operator. It's all just for temporary. Of course. Well, what do we have here? My guess is that RPM sensor board might be dead, which is pretty unsafe considering that clutch is cranked all the way down. So, at least it had an edge. I'm going to plug that back in and we'll see if it works, but we're going to run it without it first since it was unplugged. We'll see what happens here. Okay. That's not going to hit. No smoke, that's always a good start. See what we got. We have a very unhappy brake solenoid. Or maybe we just have a bunch of rattles. Who knows how long these things have been unused. There's dust all over them, so maybe they just need to be worn in a little bit. This thing's rattling, but it's tight, so. It's also getting a little warm, which is concerning. I didn't check that on the other machine, but almost looks like a ballast resistor from an old Chrysler. I'm assuming that's to regulate power. Doesn't look like it's bad. I just pulled the power. I'm gonna just pull this thing off here and have a look at it, but it is extremely warm. And I mean extremely warm. So, it's cracked. Let's run through the capacitor. That got very hot very quick. I think I'm going to swap this out with the one from the parts operator. Just going to temporarily pop it back in here, and I will do that later. Might have to order a new one of those, if it's even still available. I'm not sure what it does. I mean, it goes through the capacitor and then it goes to this blue wire, which these two blue wires look like they go to the brake. Maybe that's to drop the voltage going to the brake solenoid. Not sure. But anyway, I want to know if this reversing board is dead or not, because it is unplugged. So I'll plug it back in. I'm going to plug the operator back in. And let's see what we get. All right, let's see if it'll close. Okay. Well, for the most part, this one appears to be functional. So since we are going to be welding, I'm going to go ahead and unplug that board again, just to keep the electronics safe. Worst case scenario, like I said, I do have the parts machine that I can rob that out of if it needs to be replaced. This one, though, this does concern me. It's very, very warm. So I think I'm going to go ahead and swap that one out with the one out of the parts machine. We'll do that after we weld everything up. So I guess let's get started. I'm going to flip this thing over and we'll basically just rinse and repeat on the rail end down there. Want to see how fast I can extend this rail? You gonna make it or come up short? Dang it. Well, this one's a little bit less organized, but here we are. Okay, so I think that's how it's gonna go. Right there. There we go. Time, beat that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead now, get this horse out of the way. We'll cut the zip ties, set the chain tension. I'm just gonna wipe down the rail like I did the last one, and we'll go ahead and set the limit, see how this thing runs. All right, I got everything put all back together on this. Went ahead and swapped out that that ballast resistor looking thing with the other operator, and I plugged back in the RPM sensor board. So made a little adjustment here on the down limit. Let's go ahead and give this a cycle and see how it does. Oh yeah, that needs some more distance. Hold please. Let's make an adjustment. Start with that. This ballast resistor is getting warm too. Maybe that's normal, I don't know, but I'm gonna keep an eye on that, because I did not check that on the other machine when I was messing with that one, so who knows? I mean, I know these are only limited to, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 cycles an hour. Technically, that's what they're rated for. Maybe that's why, but I'll just have to monitor that. What do you guys think? How does that look? Good? Decent? I'm happy with that. Let's give it a cycle, see how it passes over this junction here. And then I'll just go ahead like I did with the other one, oil the machine, and this one will be ready to go up. It got quiet all of a sudden, that's cool. I do think that buzzing is the brake solenoid. Okay, I'm happy with that. It was a lot less expensive to do it this way than it was to buy all new rails and chains. Glad that we can use these instead of throwing them in the garbage. But I'm gonna button this thing up and then we'll get talking about the third operator that we're gonna make. That's probably gonna be the next video though, so stay tuned.